Did Paul say the Torah ended? Well, today we're looking at one of the most misunderstood verses in all of Paul's letters, Romans chapter 10, verse 4. So that verse reads, Christ is the end of the law for righteousness to everyone who believes. And for centuries, many have taken that verse to mean Christ put an end to the Torah. In other words, the law is done, terminated, and obsolete. But is that really what Paul meant? Well, let's start with the Greek word telos, translated here as end. So this word can mean termination, but can also mean goal, culmination, or purpose. So when Paul says Christ is the telos of the law, he may be saying something much deeper, that Christ is the goal of the law, not its cancellation. But in what sense is Christ the goal of the law? Well, I found Stanley Stowers' work to be very helpful in this area, especially his book, Rereading Romans. So Stowers argues that Paul's point in Romans 10, verse 4 isn't about ending the law, but rather about how, through Christ, God fulfilled his promise made in the law to bring blessings to the Gentiles. So think of Romans chapter 10, verse 4 like this. Paul's saying, Christ is the goal of the law with respect to God's promise in the law to redeem Gentiles. So despite what many commentaries emphasize, in Romans 10, verse 4, Paul doesn't contrast a Jewish, Torah-based way of obtaining righteousness with a new, grace-based Christian way of becoming righteous. Rather, Paul expresses that Christ is fulfilling God's promise to Abraham in Genesis 12, that the whole world would be blessed through him. So Romans 10 verse 4 isn't about ending the law or ending Judaism. Rather, it's about God's faithfulness to the law, especially its promise that the nations would be redeemed. Paul saw Christ as the turning point in that story, not the end of it. And here's why this matters today. For far too long, verses like Romans 10 verse 4 have been used to justify supersessionism, the idea that Christianity replaced Judaism and that the Torah was discarded by Christ. That kind of thinking has fueled centuries of misunderstanding and negativity towards Jews and Judaism. But if Paul saw Christ not as the end of the law, but as the fulfillment of its promise for the nations, then we're looking at a very Jewish Paul, a Paul who honors God's covenant with Israel while celebrating God's mercy to the Gentiles. So Romans 10 verse 4 doesn't erase the Torah or Judaism. It was Paul's way of expressing how Jews and Christians are part of a shared story. Hey, if you'd like to learn more about Paul and his Jewish and Greco-Roman context, check out my book, The Weird Apostle. You can find it on Amazon, and don't miss out on any of my new content by subscribing wherever you're watching or listening. And if you'd like to learn more about how to build bridges between Jews and Christians, check out bridgebuildersforum.com.